A little over 10 years ago, a grassroots movement was emerging to preserve and ensure the future of the former Niagara Falls High School and to improve the quality of life for the surrounding community. It started with a letter to the editor of the Niagara Gazette protesting the demolition of the building. Public protests followed with petitions, city council meetings, and kitchen table discussions. The Niagara Falls High School Preservation Task Force was formed to research the depth of the people's desire and will to save the school. On May 16, 2001, after months of hard work and determination, the Niagara Falls School District transferred ownership of the building to Save Our Sites for $1. The Niagara Arts and Cultural Center was established as the best fit between the building and the community. Volunteers came from Niagara Falls, Grand Island, Lewiston, and Youngstown to help sweep, mop, paint, and carry out trash. Volunteers came forward again when it was time to organize the office, act as rental agents, and begin the process of raising funds to pay for repairs and utilities. Classrooms became studios. July 1st, 2001, the first 4 artists signed leases for studio space in the building. Theater groups became tenants and turned the oak-paneled library into the Woodbox Theater. Schools of dance, song, and music became tenants. Flowers were planted and benches installed. Sculpture graced the front lawn. By the 3rd year, all available rooms had become rented studios, and the large common areas had been renamed and repurposed. The following recollections are from the most dedicated volunteers and the NACC's first family members.
The theme that we were pushing towards the end is that because it's the right thing to do.
The steps, we used to march, a bunch of kids of our friends. We used to march up and down those stairs, and there's a little spot on each side of the doors that is like a little platform, and we use that as a stage, and we used to tap dance and everything there. So that was my memories of the high school. I loved that school. We went to all the meetings. There was board meetings. Hal Fowler was head of the board at that time.
Since at one point, Benison Development and the Board of Education of Niagara Falls came before us in order to get us to recommend to the City Council to tear this big building down that was on the corner of Portage and Pine. Mayor Irene Elias said, "Hal, would you please get involved? I think you could spur them on if you were a part of the process." I said, "I can't. Conflict of interest. I have to recommend to the council whether to tear the building down or not." She said, "Well, please, please." And so finally I talked to Tom DeSantis, and I decided to resign from the planning board and pick up the task force. And of course, by picking it up, I became president and CEO and everything with Dr. Mel Deister especially, and with Bill Broderick, the lawyer, to formulate a task force enough that would give us the opportunity of getting the building. And so pleased now that our reputation far exceeds the hill at Pine and Portage. And people in New York City know about us, and people in other parts of the country know about us, and people are coming to see what's happening. And that's the beauty of it.
But once they did turn the school over to the city, and the city gave it to the NACC, was able to see the transformation, especially the cafeteria, what it was to what it is now. It's really amazing. As Hal talked about the Woodbox, that's a delightful venue for small theater groups and small plays. It's very nice.
The school board was going to give them $1 million to tear this building down and to put a strip mall. Mayor Elia got into the picture, and so we called her. And we says, "Well, are you going to do something not to tear down another building in Niagara Falls? And she says, I certainly will. And that's where it took off.
We went around and people were very generous. I had the governor come out and he toured the building, also the head of the Department of State, who said to me, the stars are aligned for this building. And they put us on the state registry for historical sites. So as far as the building was concerned, we had no problem except the roof. And after 10 years, they have a new roof. And I'm happy about that.
There was like plastic bags strung across the room, catching the water from the leaking ceiling. So many times when I left a board meeting and would hear Lou how much we are in debt, and then I'd leave and I'd look around and see all the work that had to be done. I'd get in my car and I thought, you know, I'm just going to keep working as hard as I can.
We're sitting at the dining room table, and I was complaining about an article I had read in the Gazette. I had found out through the article that the Niagara Falls Board of Education was considering tearing down my old high school. There was going to be a meeting at the Niagara Falls Public Library, so I attended the meeting there with Jerry Mitro and Elaine Mancini, and they had a sign-up sheet after the information meeting, and I went down and I said, what can I do? I have to help. And Kathy Cadella, me, Karen Mahoney, the people that we also transferred into the board of Save Our Sites. I never doubted that if we were able to take it over, convince the people it was important still, that it meant something to us and that we should work hard to create whatever we could find that would fit.
Hi, my name is Karen. It was Mahoney until this whole project started, and later in the NACC life, it became Karen Cohn. I met Hal first, as I had read an article in the paper about the building being demolished. And from then, it just grew. I started on the telephone task force. I started writing letters to the editor. What else did I do? To Senator Maziers, you know, just several different people to help us save the school. Board of Education made several visits to several people. And as we got the ball rolling, we ended up in here and cleaning. And I was on the board of directors, the executive secretary, which I'm very proud of, and just had a wonderful time. And it's become something that everyone involved should be very proud of.
A lot of great art came out of this building when it was a school. A lot of great theater productions, music. I knew teachers, Marva Frails, people who were fabulous, great art teachers, and I'm glad about the legacy. That's a good word for it. The legacy of the building and the people that made it.
And we all agreed about trying to save the building. And so the candidates that were elected in the 1999 council and mayoral elections were all strong proponents of saving the building. The idea of the NACC as it exists today was there from the very beginning. It was one of the first concepts for what might happen if the building was saved. But when you look back at all the things that had to happen along the way in order for the NACC to become what it's become today, I think it's plain why a lot of people here call it the miracle building. You know, every time it seems the NACC comes up against what looks like an insurmountable obstacle, somehow some coalition of people and forces and ideas come together to, you know, get it to the next phase. And, it's been a great success story thus far.
The building itself was a very impressive building, and I think we all felt it was going to be something big once we got going with it. But we all knew it was going to take quite a while to do just that. So we just dug in and started, and there's a lot of support for it in the community itself. Such an impressive building to begin with. You're starting with some raw material that's hard to beat anywhere. And what has been done with it in terms of sprucing it up and fixing up the driveway and the outside and the lawns and the art objects that are out there. And I'm especially impressed by right now I think the art gallery is the one thing, the signature thing that we have. And I think we've got space in the building that we aren't using adequately yet that needs to work. we have to derive funds not only for the operating of the theater, but we have to derive some additional funds for the building. It still needs work, the heating plant needs upgrading, lights. Those are the big things that I see. Once we get that, I think we're going to get more people in here, more artists, and it'll become a bigger and bigger thing.
You have to revitalize everything, but it's going to be done. And that's our goal right now, is to redo this, same as the Riviera or the Hollywood. If more people get involved, you can do a lot of things. Now, you have a beautiful place. This is the central point right here. If you can rebuild this, everything else around it can be rebuilt.
I can remember the feeling that this school gave me my start, in a sense, in the art world. And it was such a good feeling to walk up the stairs and to enter all the rooms and to meet the new artists. I remember meeting Ruth Thomas and Barb Greenman and Jay Carrier and Bill Wilson. And we artists started to clean because the building was really very old. So we got our mops and we got our brooms and we got our bags for garbage, and we cleaned up. And that was a good experience because we got, I don't know how to explain this, but we got a good feeling about this place, and it was ours.
This SOS group had saved the school, and they were making an art center out of it, and they were going to start signing up artists. Well, the following morning, needless to say, I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't wait to get down here and get in that door and sign up for one of these studios.
I think for the better part of the community, I suppose, this building is a plus. I thought this is the doorway to the renaissance of Niagara Falls.
The NACC is one of the most, it is exactly what Niagara Falls should be doing. The people who run it are devoted to it. It's their, it was their dream, you know, to provide an art space for artists, including all artists, you know, sculptors and photographers and actors and singers and musicians and designers and writers. Oh boy.
Hi, I'm Linda Silvestri, and I am part of Western Door Playhouse. I love the NACC, and I love this theater, and I hope to be doing theater for many years to come.
I think Catherine established the gallery schedules and that, and she did a real good job, Catherine Johnson, and now she's the president. You know, she's doing a fantastic job. There's so many.
Just a totally different setting, and Anders gave me a card with Kathy Cadella's name on it, told me to call, and we did the next day and scheduled an appointment for a tour.
Victor called Kathy Cadella. We were so excited. We had often talked about what it would be like if there was a place where there were other artists, where there were other woodworkers, where there was a co-op, where there was something that Victor could be a part of. I took good notes, so it didn't get to be long before I became chair of the gallery committee. I was
Also,
on the gallery committee, became chair of the gallery committee.
At the same time, I was doing a lot of volunteer work.
In the gallery.
And
there you have it. He was here all the time. I had to do something.
Rolled into different categories of responsibility, and you know, eventually became chair of the gallery committee.
We've made such a dramatic change in 10 years. People not only in this region know about the NACC, people in New York City know about the NACC, and we really are a model and a miracle, and we were called that by Heather Hitchens, who is the executive director of New York State Council of the Arts, when she came to visit us, because she saw that we are doing so much more than just what we're doing within the walls. We are really impacting a lot of people outside of the building. One of them is this Grand Theater, and it is actually based on the drawing rooms of the 1920s mansions. It has an Adam-esque roof, ceiling rather, that was typical of mansions in the 1920s. This whole building was built like a mansion of the 1920s with a sweeping driveway, the front steps, the grand front steps, into a marble foyer, into the wonderful hallway, and into this theater. And then on the third floor, we have an oak-paneled library with a Tudor ceiling. So this was a mansion for everybody, for the kids who came in here, and we were able to share that with everyone. And so we began to see this elegant, wonderful, beautiful building start to reemerge the way it was actually designed in the 1920s. And we realized one of the assets was to really bring it back to the beautiful building it was. Our capital campaign is called Step Up and Take a Bow, because the goal is to renovate the Grand Theater. So the board has really seen the importance of bringing this theater back as the jewel of this entire beautiful building.
I might add to that, there's a great deal of support, both in a moral support and to some extent financially, from the city government, who have very desperately wanted the NACC to succeed. We got an enormous amount of help in that from the city, as well as some major contributors in the form of foundations and, of course, a big state grant. If the building had not been stabilized, we would not be talking about the future. We're now in the stage of enhancing and we think rehabilitating into a new use as, in effect, a civic jewel that will become a center for the population.
The NACC has become a community anchor, stabilizing the surrounding community by organically growing into a multi-art center that serves the diverse population and enhances the quality of life, both economically and socially. There are many people who take pride and ownership in the building. The NACC has a large and extended family. All had a part in helping it grow into the precocious 10-year-old it is today. After visiting the NACC in 2007, Heather Hitchens, Executive Director of the New York State Council of the Arts, looked back at the NACC and said, "This building is both a miracle and a marvel." Built when kings and queens came to visit the Power City, the Grand Lady is an elegant emblem of the past and the future. She has found new life and purpose. We hope many generations will continue to participate in the rich cultural offerings at the Niagara Arts and Cultural Center.